High upon the sweeping moors north of Manchester stood the small town of Wickersham. Isolated and insular, it was a curious place, populated by uncanny folk wired a bit differently than most. The residents liked their privacy and uniformity. Every house the same shape and size, distinguishable only by the color of their facades. Outsiders were regarded warily, with hostility boiling just beneath the surface politeness. Wickersham dozed beneath a pale October sky, the trees shedding the first leaves of autumn, when a loud red Ford Fiesta came puttering down the lane. Heads poked through curtains and residents stepped onto porches to gawk at the unwelcome intrusion. The car parked in front of a vacant house and out stepped a large woman with flaming red hair, squeezed into a hot pink tracksuit. She chuckled at the attention, enjoying being the center of gossip. "Hello, I'm Samantha, your new neighbor. Lovely to meet you all," she called out in a delicate Liverpool lilt, oblivious to the waves of animosity emanating from the onlookers. With an airy wave, she trundled up the steps and into her new home, the door slamming decisively behind her. News of the coarse newcomer spread through town like a virus, along with a festering hatred for the intruder who had shattered their peace. Samantha tried to ingratiate herself into the community, but her personality clashed with the reserved Wickersham ways. She was loud, vulgar, and had no regard for personal boundaries. At the pub, she'd chatter endlessly on her mobile, drowning out the subdued conversations preferred by the locals. At the market, she harangued the clerks about prices and having to show ID. Patience wore thin as her antics escalated. The final affront came when she reversed her Ford into a neighbor's treasured postbox, demolishing it, then berated the off-license manager for having a nip while on duty. Enough was enough. Something had to be done about Samantha Musgrave. That night, an innocuous knock sounded at her door as she lay dozing on her garish lime-green sofa. Assuming it was a mistake, she almost didn't answer, but the knocking persisted. She opened the door to find a man about her age, red trousers and checked shirt, asking to use her phone. No one saw Samantha again after that. It was several weeks before her absence was noted. Not that anyone seemed to care. There was a palpable sense of relief that the obnoxious outsider was gone and peace restored to Wickersham's streets. Life returned to normal, as if Samantha Musgrave had never existed. Only when her landlord came to collect the overdue rent was her disappearance uncovered. A thorough search revealed no signs of break-in or struggle. Only a few drops of blood on the bottom stair hinted at foul play. When questioned, the residents affected befuddlement and insisted they had no idea what happened to Samantha. The investigation ran aground and was soon shelved. Just another inexplicable missing persons case. Except the good folk of Wickersham knew exactly what had occurred. Samantha's fate had been sealed the moment she set foot in their town. For the residents were the descendants of 3 families cast out from Manchester society centuries ago for witchcraft, and they had vowed to keep their insularity intact at any cost. Samantha body, no crime. Over time, the blood soaked into the cracks between the floorboards. Samantha's belongings were disposed of, and her existence faded from memory. Her Ford Fiesta was dumped in a nearby bog, the hungry peat swallowing it whole. Soon, it was like she had never been there at all. As the years passed, there were whispers and rumors about the vanished woman, but no one asked too many until the day another shiny foreign car came down the lane and parked in front of the vacant greenhouse. A well-dressed man and woman got out, looking around curiously as they mounted the steps. The curtains twitched and knowing glances were exchanged. Fresh meat had arrived in Wickersham. The cycle was about to begin again. As the shiny black Range Rover pulled to a stop in front of the moss green house on Barnoldswick Way, curious faces once again appeared in windows and doorways along the tranquil street. Newcomers were a rarity in Wickersham and invariably a source of much gossip and speculation. Henry and Charlotte Cavendish looked to be in their early 30s, well-heeled and well-bred, exuding the confidence and savoir-faire of the upper class. They had the whiff of money about them, the expensive clothes, the posh accents, the casually mentioned country estate in Cheshire. The town busybodies set to work finding out all they could about the latest arrivals. The facts were sparse but tantalizing. Henry was minor gentry, heir to an earldom, a city banker who wanted to escape the stress of London life. Charlotte was a pediatric surgeon, brilliant and dedicated. A handsome couple, childless as yet, looking for a quiet place to set down roots away from the spotlight. What brought them to Wickersham of all places? Some said Charlotte had distant roots here, an eccentric great-aunt who had left her a property. Others whispered that Henry was in some kind of trouble and laying low. But the truth remained elusive. At first, the Cavendishes kept to themselves, politely deflecting invitations to tea and offers. Gradually, they lowered their guard and started to engage with their neighbors. Charlotte volunteered at the local GP and animal shelter. Henry joined the beekeeping and fly fishing societies. They even hosted a lavish garden party to meet everyone properly. The residents were utterly charmed by the glamorous couple. But not everyone was won over. Amidst the bonhomie, a few sets of shrewd eyes watched the newcomers carefully, picking up on subtle cues. The way Charlotte flinched almost imperceptibly any time someone came up behind her. How Henry kept the drinks flowing but barely sipped his own glass. The manner in which they skillfully steered conversations away from anything too personal. Oddities began to surface. A deliverman swore he saw Charlotte in the garden at midnight digging a hole, her white nightgown splattered with dark stains. A hiker claimed Henry was witnessed dragging a large sack into the woods. Several pets and the occasional livestock went missing. The elders convened for the first time in decades to discuss the interlopers. Interviews were conducted, genealogies scrutinized, divinations consulted. An uneasy consensus emerged. The Cavendishes were not what they seemed. Beneath the polished veneers lurked something shadowy and rotten, perhaps even unnatural. Ancient tomes were dusted off, complex rituals prepared. It had been a long time since a binding had been done, but it was like riding a bicycle. The necessary elements were gathered, the most crucial being a personal effect from each target. This was obtained via a middling hex that compelled them to accept a dinner invitation from the vicar. A lock of hair and a nail clipping were said to seal the spell. The appointed night arrived. A new moon, auspicious for banishments. Henry and Charlotte arrived at the vicarage to find it unexpectedly dark. As they hesitated on the stoop, a gust of wind blew the door open with an ominous creak. Candles flickered to life, illuminating the way to the dining room. They stepped inside to find all 13 members of the Wickersham coven assembled around the long oak table, sipping from silver chalices. Goat heads and coiled snakes adorned the walls. The vicar stood to greet them, eyes black as pitch. "Welcome, Henry and Charlotte," he rasped. "You have been summoned to stand trial before the council for crimes against this community. The evidence against you is irrefutable. A verdict has been rendered and a sentence passed." He withdrew an ancient iron dagger from his robes and stirred a swirling blue powder into their wine goblets with the tip. "Drink and all will be revealed." The Cavendishes exchanged a long glance, then smiled coldly as they each selected a chalice. "You simple fools," Henry sneered. "Did you really believe your pitiful hedge magic could hold us? We drank your little potion days ago after your sloppy attempt at ensnarement. It's been cleansed from our bodies." Charlotte sighed and shook her head. "You should have left well enough alone. We chose this place to settle because we thought the presence of magic would mask our own. We were willing to live and let live to suppress our natural appetites to keep the peace. But you just couldn't help yourselves. Could you? Couldn't resist meddling in matters beyond your ken." Flames erupted from the tapers and unholy shadows writhed upon the walls as the couple rose to their feet, fingernails extending into jagged talons. Their eyes flickered from blue to green to inky black, teeth elongating into needle fangs as their faces rippled and contorted hideously. "Silly rabbits," Charlotte giggled. "You thought we were mere witches like you? Oh no, we are so much more. But I don't blame you, darlings. Wickersham has grown complacent in its isolation, soft and spoiled. Perhaps it's time some new blood took the reins." Henry grinned savagely. "We'll be sure to send the council a fruit basket or something, to show our appreciation for the welcome wagon and all. Before we eat you, of course." What happened next was too horrific to describe without indelicacy unfit for civilized pages. Let us simply say the coven members' ends were gruesome and drawn out and not particularly beneficial to the digestive process, as the Cavendishes soon discovered. Apparently, warlock flesh doesn't agree with demonic constitutions. The next day, a pleasant young couple named Henry and Charlotte Cavendish took up residence in the stately manor house at the end of Wickersham Lane, recently vacated by the village vicar, who had abruptly moved to parts unknown along with his aging mother and several prominent council members. Damned odd business that, but people move on. In the fullness of time, the Range Rover was replaced by a sleek Jaguar. The garden flourished with night-blooming roses and Russian wolfsbane, and the aura of magic surrounding Wickersham deepened to a palpable throb, ancient and malevolent. The locals learned not to ask too many questions, to avoid eye contact, and to never, ever venture near the old churchyard after nightfall, especially during a new moon when the revelry tended to get a bit messy. Just another quirk of living in such a close-knit hamlet. And if, on occasion, a shiny foreign car parked in front of a vacant house on Barnoldswick Way, no one said a word. They simply watched from behind twitching curtains, taking silent bets on how long the newcomers would last, before they too vanished into the swirling mists of the moor, never to be heard from again. Just another cozy English country village with its quaint customs and eerie local color. We all have our little eccentricities, don't we? Scones and clotted cream. Love? Of course, vicar. There's a deer. And the wheel keeps turning.